What a crazy vacation. I just got back from vacation, but I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the show. What is up, Burke fans? Welcome back to my channel. I watched the finale of the White Lotus, and today we're going to talk about this show. We're going to start out spoiler-free at the beginning of the review, and then at the end, we're just going to kind of talk about that ending. So if you haven't watched the show at that point, it's the perfect place to drop off, but let's get right into it. So, set in a tropical resort. This show follows the exploits of various guests and employees over the span of a week at the White Lotus Resort, and manager Armond in the first episode is trying to calm down an unreasonable Shane and his easygoing wife named Rachel, while spa director Belinda is calming a grieving Tanya. Meanwhile, Nicole suggests that her husband Mark needs to distract himself from a health scare by spending time with their son Quinn, who's been cast out by his sister Olivia and her friend Paula. So this show is surrounding and following various characters, families, groups of people, and everything that is happening at that hotel. So we get various storylines that we're focused on. That's how I'm going to go about the spoiler-free portion of this review. And let's start with Armond, the hotel or the resort manager. This guy is as quirky and as interesting as you would imagine a character like this to be, because all he wants to do is please his guests, but at the same time, he's keeping things from certain people. He's not telling Paula and Olivia that their bag was stolen. He's not telling Shane that he accidentally double-booked a resort. So on the outside, he's this smiling and happy resort manager, but deep down on the inside, you can tell he's a bit of a jerk, and he's a liar and almost a scumbag at points in this show. But Murray Bartlett plays him incredibly. I mean, one of my absolute favorite performances from the entire show. But he also does feel regret. Like, one of his interns is pregnant and having a baby. He didn't even know about it in the first few episodes. So he feels this sense of urgency, but at the same time, it's a sense of care for his employees. There are certain guests that are getting under his skin, and that's where we get into Shane's side of things. And Shane and Rachel just got married. This is supposed to be their perfect honeymoon, but he wanted the pineapple suite, and he didn't get the pineapple suite. So I can understand from his point of view, yeah, I would be frustrated and upset only if I, personally, paid more money for one thing that I didn't end up getting. But at the same time, it's your honeymoon. You just got to kind of either get your money back or get it settled in another way. And even though Armond is stubborn, Jake is allowing, or Shane, played by Jake Lacey, is allowing this to get under his skin to a degree to where it is ruining their honeymoon, because his easygoing wife, played by Alexandra Daddario, who does a fantastic job as Rachel, she's just trying to kind of go through the motions, and he is upset almost the entirety of the trip. But he is also making selfish decisions, and when it comes to her trying to figure out what she's going to do with her life, pushing things upon her that she does not want. So you have that back and forth and that bickering there that is not allowing this honeymoon to be what they thought it would be. And this is the spoiler-free portion, but eventually we get to see his mother, and she comes in, and that entire dynamic is just awkward. There's a lot of awkwardness that comes from the people and the couples and the families in this show, but it's intended, so it works really, really well. And then we get into the family side of things. We have Quinn and his sister Olivia. They bring along Olivia's friend Paula on the trip, and Mark is going through something all throughout this show. He's having a bit of an identity crisis, because at first he believes he has cancer. He thinks, oh, well, my dad had cancer. That's what's going on. And then as we progress through the show, not to spoil anything, he realizes new things about his diagnosis, but also about what his dad was going through that he didn't know about as he was growing up. So that becomes a bit of a personal crisis for him. And because of that, his wife is going through some things. His daughter is going through something completely different, because she believes her friend, well, she knows her friend is hiding something from her. And then poor Quinn, who's forced to sleep on the beach, and I'd be like, no, you're not going to tell me where to sleep. But he discovers that there's more to life than just your cell phone. So it's like every individual member of this show, but then more specifically of this family, and when you get into the couple side of things, they each have a character arc where they're learning something or getting behind something or making a horrible decision. A lot of selfishness in this show. So at times it can be frustrating to watch, because they're saying something or doing something that is either annoying us as a viewer or annoying someone else in the show. But again, it's all intended, and it's all meant to make us think about, and I can't believe I've not even talked about this, what's set up in the first episode: who ends up in the casket. Because at the beginning of the first episode, Jake Lacey's character is standing talking on the phone, and we see a casket, and we hear that someone at the White Lotus died. And we're trying to figure out who is it going to be, and I continued to have my guesses, have my predictions as every episode went. I said, oh, it could be this person or this person. So that was definitely what was keeping me going. But also, it's the dialogue. It's the well-written nature of the show. It's bringing all of these story arcs and storylines together. I thought all of it came together at the end of each episode fairly nicely, and man, just the haunting nature of some of the music and the way this thing is made and the cinematography and the lighting, it's all really, really great. But we also have to talk about Belinda, played by Natasha Rothwell, and Jennifer Coolidge's Tanya, who is going through a crisis separate from everybody else's crisis that she is really struggling with, and she kind of brings Belinda along with her, eventually meets someone else, but man, what she is going through was completely unexpected, and Jennifer Coolidge gives such an incredible performance. Maybe the best I've ever seen from her. And I could say that about Coolidge. I could say that about Jake Lacey and Steve Zahn, and Sydney Sweeney as Olivia is incredible, and everybody in this show does such a good job, a compelling cast, and you can look at these mysteries, whether it be in movie or television form, and they often keep you on your toes with trying to figure out, okay, who's it going to be? How is everything going to build up and be resolved at the end? But then you have to have a cast. I mean, look at a movie like Knives Out. The cast is incredible. That's the same case here. The biggest surprise for me was Murray Bartlett, but maybe the best performance, I could say Jennifer Coolidge, I could say Jake Lacey, Sydney Sweeney, Steve Zahn. So you can say that about all of these. Connie Britton was incredible as well. So a great cast, an incredibly weaved show, the way they're bringing together all of these storylines, and the mystery keeping you on your toes until the end. So I do want to talk about the final episode and who ended up being in that casket. But before we do that, spoiler alert. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give my score as well. So if you enjoyed this review to this point, be sure to drop your thumbs up down below. That tells me you'd like me to review more HBO shows. It's something I'm not doing as often. I'm going to go an 85%, an 8.5 out of 10, a show that kept me on my toes throughout the entirety of the runtime and the screenplay. The dialogue, it is firing on all cylinders. It's so well written. Okay, spoilers. Who was in the casket? And the biggest sense of tension throughout the show, in my opinion, was Jake Lacey's Shane and Murray Bartlett's Armond, who both continue to build up and get more and more frustrated. And the more we saw them interact in person, the more we were like, okay, something bad's going to happen. So we see Armond in the final episode sneak into this guy's room and go number 2 in his suitcase, which was just like, first of all, it was the most childish thing you could do, but at the same time, it almost feels warranted by the writing and what that character would have done, kind of going a little crazy at the end there, because he's like, I'm going to be fired. It doesn't really matter at this point. There's a lot of sneaking into rooms and stealing things. We see Paula's love interest, Kai, do that because, of course, she told him what the combination was, and that was even more tension between our two friends. But I really, at a point, I did kind of expect it to be Armond, but then I fell off of that. I believe it was episode 4 or 5. But then it started to come back up. It started to build in that final episode of Armond sneaking in. And then you see Shane come into the room, and I'm saying, oh no, it's got to be Armond. And at that point, I was sure that it was going to be that. But the show did such a good job of pointing us in different directions that prior to this episode happening, throughout the runtime of episode 5, I didn't think it was going to be the case. So kudos to the screenwriters for swerving us in so many different directions. But yes, Armond was the character to bite the dust, and the character that ended up being in the casket because he gets stabbed by Shane, and of course he's shocked and he's devastated by the fact that he did something like that, but Shane's like, just desserts, Armond. Just desserts. And even though that buildup was telling me it was going to happen, when it happened, I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, it was just the way that they went about it, and the buildup of the music and the pacing of the show, it was all just so on point. And then when we got there and we got that reveal at the end, I love the fact that they're making this an anthology series. They've already announced that we're getting more from this universe, so that's great. It was so well constructed, and even though it wasn't necessarily my final prediction. I thought the obvious pick was Rachel, and then at a point I said maybe it could be Kai. They could figure that out, have a little bit of a confrontation. Maybe Kai could come back and kill Mark. I didn't know how they would do it, but then Armond started to become a bit more obvious towards the end there. Part of me wishes that we would not have seen Jake Lacy at the beginning looking at the casket, just because, you know, at various points I could have thought it would be him. But we needed something at the beginning to catch our interest, and of course we got that, and it allowed us to sit back and wait on who exactly was going to bite the dust. So, very well-constructed show. Just wanted to talk a little bit of spoilers at the end here and talk about that crazy ending, and then, of course, we get that shot at the end of all of the White Lotus employees waving at the new and incoming group of guests, and I'm curious to see what the guests think about what just went down at that hotel and how much detail was actually revealed to them. Okay, I'm getting deeper than I need to get. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and my overall review of The White Lotus on HBO. I thought it was a very well-constructed and well-written show. You guys are truly the best. Let me know, what would you guys like to see me review this week? It could be a jam-packed next couple of weeks. We'll have to see what theaters and streaming services are going to bring us. You guys the best. I'll see you soon.